Well, there's a lot of different areas we're in. So if you're talking about Syria and Iraq, I think we should be pulling out. I do think that it's right for us to be sending resources into the region, given that things could pop off with Iran, Lebanon, Turkey might get involved in some way. There's all sorts of entanglements there. So I think it's wise to have resources in the region. But I do think that our expanded presence in the region makes us more vulnerable. Like, why are bases in Syria getting hit by missiles right now? Why do we have troops there at all? And there's a lot of factions there working with the Iraqi military that are working against us. So why are we in Iraq? And we're just leaving ourselves vulnerable. But there's no doubt that radical Islam is popping off right now, and I think that we have a vested interest in making sure that American citizens and American interests are protected.
And to your point, according to the Pentagon, U.S. troops stationed in Iraq and Syria have been targeted and attacked by rockets and drones some 38 plus times. What is the proper response to this, and what is the feeling like for those in those combat zones?
Sure. So, I think that if there's an immediate danger, I think the appropriate response is to eliminate that threat. I think long term, again, the way we fix this problem is just not having troops within range of their missiles to begin with. Take Syria, for example. You've got Assad, who's a bad guy. You've got the Free Syrian Army, who's not a long-term ally. You've got a Kurdish group that's not the same as the Kurds in Iraq. They're basically a communist terrorist group. In fact, they fight the Kurds in Iraq. They're a different Kurdish faction. There's really no good guy there. So what are our interests? We went in initially to defeat the ISIS caliphate, and we've essentially done that. The ISIS fighters that are still there are spread thin. They're really no threat to anyone except for in that specific region. So what is our interest there? Why are we putting troops in harm's way? I think that we need to pull ourselves out to make sure that when we have a legitimate interest, that we could be more calculating about how we approach that. Right now, every single step we take is dangerous, in that there's all sorts of entanglements and with other foreign governments and other governments that don't like us. We need to simplify the problem, reduce our footprint in the region so that we can then focus on what our core interests are in U.S. national security.
A lot of really important points there. One specifically that stood out is you mentioned a communist terrorist group. This is an excellent point that you don't hear too much about, but when you study the ideologies and the way they operate, it's very similar. I do want to transition a bit here and just get your thoughts. We've been seeing problems of recruiting some of our young American citizens into the U.S. military. Has the patriotic education that we've come to benefit from all these years failed us? What can we learn from some of these challenges?
Well, 100%. The failure to steep our children's learning process in pro-American ideology and history has really, if you think that America is fundamentally evil and a patriarchy and an evil capitalist system, why would you sign up to potentially die for that system? And so there's a non-incentive for people to want to go and join and fight in the military. I also think that our leaders have gotten us involved in a lot of foreign conflicts that aren't clearly defined, that have no real clear national interests. And again, why would people risk their lives to do that? But look at right now. It's a lot of woke ideology in the military. So I think something like 40+% of the nominees that Senator Tuberville has put on hold, they have promoted in some way, shape, or form diversity, equity, and inclusion, or other woke ideologies that are inherently systemically racist, that are inherently systemically sexist, that are overtly anti-white, that are preferencing promotions on the basis of race and sex. So if you're a Midwest farm boy, black, white, Hispanic, and you believe in America and love this country, why would you go into a system that hates that version of America and wants to turn us into a completely different culture and society? And I think that if anyone's talking about morale issues in the military, it's coming from the very top. It's DOD leadership and weak senior generals and admirals that are allowing a decay of our culture within the DOD ranks.
Wade, what is your message to America on this Veterans Day?
There's still hope. As long as there's an American who believes in what this country stands for, there's always hope that we can prevail. If you go back to the founding, it wasn't 70% of Americans didn't stand up and oppose the British. It was a relatively small group of people that stood up and said enough is enough. And we have more people than that right now in America who still believe in what this country is supposed to mean. And we should continue to work within the system to promote our ideas. And eventually, if we work hard enough, we will prevail. And we're already starting to see a shift in momentum. The left is already starting to run away from woke ideology because they know it's politically toxic. They're not running on it in campaigns. They were running on other issues. And so we're going to win this. It may take time. It may take generations. But we're going to turn this ship around, and we're going to get it back on the right foot.